this, my slogan for a long time has been, put George W. Bush on trial. Make George W. Bush answer for his crimes. George W. Bush must be made to answer. Certainly, there are so many black politicians in this country who the government goes after ruthlessly if they violate laws. Two examples are the mayor of Newark, Mayor Sharp James, and also the mayor of Detroit, Michigan.
What about Al Sharpton?
Now, the Reverend Al Sharpton, of course, was charged. Now the New York Times is running almost daily stories about Congressman Charles Rangel, and he might have gotten $40,000 in rent that was untaxed or something. And they spend all this time on that, and yet no one says anything about George W. Bush and Halliburton, which and the money in Iraq. $11 billion disappeared during the last 8 years in Iraq, and the government cannot account for it. $11 billion. And yet the U.S. Attorney from New Jersey, for example, speculated that McCain would even put up years compiling a case against the mayor of Newark, in a case that involved, according to all the reports, hundreds of thousands.
I was just going to say that fortunately, and I put this on my personal blog, it's on YouTube. I don't know whether he's serious about it or not, and whether even we really don't know whether the election will be fixed or whether Obama and Biden will win. But Biden was questioned at some sort of event, possibly a town meeting of sorts, as to what they are going to do when elected to restore the Bill of Rights and the Constitution to where they should be in this country, and bring those who have violated the Constitution to justice, referring to the administration. And Biden actually said that if it can be proven that there were crimes committed, whether they be by a president or vice president or any member of the administration, he intends that if he takes office to prosecute them under the criminal statutes. I believe when a president is in office, he cannot be charged criminally unless they go through the impeachment process. That's my understanding. The president would have to be charged, and there would be I guess, a trial in the Senate ultimately if the vote was for impeachment, if I have that process correct. But once Bush leaves office, once Cheney leaves office, and once the rest of their staff leave office, they are subject to potential criminal prosecution for the lies that led up to the Iraq War, lying, manipulating intelligence, and everything else, and all the domestic violations. Although, sad to say, the Democrats did give retroactive immunity regarding some of that spying we talked about earlier, spying against citizens. They gave retroactive immunity to AT&T, and I believe some of the other companies that cell phone and landline carriers that gave backdoor access to the government to spy on, to wiretap people, possibly us and probably us and many other people that speak out. Hundreds of thousands, potentially a few million people had their Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure violated, and yet the Democrats signed on to retroactive immunity. And Democrats at the Democratic National Convention were seen with bags with the AT&T logo. So the corporate money, does unfortunately in many cases mute these investigations and kind of muddy the waters. Hopefully that will change. I think if we could get to a point in this country where we had pure public funding of elections and cut out the lobbyists, we would be in a much better position, not just the two major parties to end corruption, but also I think third-party candidates would be in a better position. I don't know if we'll get there, even if Obama is elected. I do have a lot of faith in him. I do think he legitimately is a good person. I think Biden is also a good person, although I do have concerns about Biden's involvement in some of the draconian drug laws that were passed in the 1980s, but he's since expressed some remorse, a little bit of regret about how that was handled. But, overall, I think most Democrats are comfortable with Obama and Biden, and I think there are an increasing number of Republicans that are switching sides. And hopefully the independents will vote Democrat and get us out of this mess. 8 years is enough. We've been very, very, very nervous and upset for 8 years, and we've been telling everyone and talking to people until they don't want to hear about it anymore. And so hopefully there will be change. And it looks like Michael has something else to say on our trial run of our video blog.
I just wanted to make two other points. I guess I have, David said 8 years, but actually it's 40 years ago this year that Nixon devised the Southern strategy. And as a PBS special on George Wallace said, George Wallace passed the torch to Nixon and Reagan and the right-wing Republicans, the torch of bigotry. This is the elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about. Richard Nixon devised the Southern strategy, and of course he won a landslide in 1972 using that strategy. And then in the year 1980, Reagan went down to Philadelphia, Mississippi, where those civil rights workers from the North were murdered and burned, their bodies burned, and Reagan said to the people of Philadelphia, "We will leave you alone. The federal government will not intervene and allow you to mind your own affairs." And of course that, and then all the statements about the welfare queens were direct reference to the black people. And then of course Karl Rove, who has run all the campaigns for George W. Bush, every single campaign he has run, back to the very beginning of his career, involving judges in Texas and Alabama and other places, have involved one form or another of homophobia. So again, the Republicans playing the bigotry card. And I am amazed that McCain would even put up with saying he's a man of integrity, would allow the continuation of these Karl Rove tactics to go on in this election. But they do. And the other problem I have with the Republican Party and with the media and with everyone is when they say the Republican Party is for small government. Nothing could be further from the truth. The only ones who get small government under the right-wing Republicans are the billionaire corporations. For example, George W. Bush's personal friend, Lowry Mays of Clear Channel, and he and a small group of a handful of Southern conglomerates were able to gobble up virtually every important radio station in this nation. No more is there local ownership. No more is there local news and community service from local radio people, local radio owners, and a diversity on the radio dial when you had each station owned by a different owner and in many cases a local owner. All of that's gone. The stations no longer serve the public interest, convenience, and necessity as they always were required to do. Now they serve as cash cows for people like George W. Bush's personal friend, Lowry Mays. Also, as David was saying, the spying on the individuals. You can't even be on the telephone or on the internet without knowing if everything you're saying on there is being spied upon, and it may well be. And of course, when you go over the border anywhere, your valises and suitcases are searched down to the tiniest items that are inside. No longer are the valises and suitcases left alone. And another thing, of course, is the war on drugs, which is a war on people of color, which is a huge government program that interferes with everybody, ruins lives, and destroys black
big
families.
Government. That's
yes,
big
right.
government, not
right.
small government.
Right.
So that's
of
an
course.
anti-Republican idea, but yet the Republicans are the ones supporting
it. Well, it's an anti-conservative idea, and that's why conservatives, like one of the founders of the conservative movement, William F. Buckley, opposed it, and also Barry Goldwater.